The great American gun grab. Let me tell you, they're coming. They're coming for your guns. The Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, it has been infringed upon. It has been done away with. You need to listen to me very carefully. This is no longer a free country. It's a corporation. They not only have trampled on the Constitution and our constitutional rights, they have torn Old Glory to shreds. They now have a right to talk and question your doctor. Doctor-patient confidentiality is no more. They are coming for your guns. Gun confiscation. Gas prices are falling drastically. People are getting excited. You need to be worried. The powers that be, their plan is going as planned. They want to crash this economy to bring in their new world order. And to do that, they cannot have citizens armed. Confiscation. It's happening, and it's happening now. The great American gun grab. Let me explain to you how they're pulling it off. I'll be right back. A lot of planning, a lot of trial and error went into the disarming of America, the disarming of American citizens, taking away their Second Amendment right to bear arms. It's been a long process, a tedious process for the powers that be, but they finally found a way to take away your right to bear arms. And let me explain how this all came about. First, they tried how bad guns are. Everywhere you looked on mainstream media news, front page headlines, they were showcasing one shooting after the other. Look how bad and dangerous guns are. Stricter gun laws. We need stricter background checks. We need to do away with guns. They were offering money. Turn in your guns. And they kept going with this approach and kept pushing the gun agenda, showing false flag events like the Sandy Hook Massacre, the Boston Marathon bombing, the Batman Dark Knight Rises movie theater shooting. One shooting after the other they would showcase. But they had to come up with something more because the American people stood strong. The patriots stood strong to their Second Amendment right and would not willingly give up their guns. So they had to come up with another option, and they did, and they have succeeded this time. We Americans, we are a society that is sick. We run to the doctor for every little ache and pain and sniffle. We are medicated, uneducated, and fluoridated. They want us sick. That is the powers that be. That's their grand overall plan, to have us a sick society dependent on the healthcare system. Why do you think the big push for Obamacare? Now, they are seeing to it that we are sick, that we do have pain, that we do have disease and cancers, and we're running to the doctors. They are spraying chemtrails on the population. We're becoming sick. Heavy metals, toxins. They're pushing immunizations. We're eating poison. Poison. The food that we're eating is poison. GMOs. And that's their plan. Now they've taken it another step farther. They've looked at each generation. They've looked at the 60s, the 1970s, the 80s, and the 1990s. A lot of people back then protest free love. Hang on a minute. Free love. Yes, they took a look at society in general, going back through the generations. In 1960, free love, give peace a chance, stop the war now, get out of Vietnam. Woodstock, young people were experimenting openly with sex, not only sex, but with illegal drugs, hallucinants, pills, marijuana. And this trend continued on in the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, free love, experimenting with drugs and hallucinants and pills and marijuana. And the citizens today, we are all of that generation, many now looking for alternative health care rather than the medical profession, alternative means of being healthy. And that's where they got us. I'll be right back. All right, before I go any further, let me show you that I am a gun owner. And I practice my Second Amendment right to bear arms. Now, with that said, in order to win this war, we've got to be able to think like the enemy. Now, alive in the world today, we are the generations that came from the 1960s, the 1970s, 80s and 90s. Free love, give peace a chance, end the war in Vietnam, heavy metal, rock music, Led Zeppelin, Motley Crue. A society today that came from that era, but tried such drugs as marijuana. Now you got to think like the enemy. What do you see making news headlines today? There are a number of states that have legalized marijuana, and more states are following. They are allowing marijuana because they know a good number of the American people came from that era, and they smoke marijuana for recreational purposes. And the other states now are legalizing the use of marijuana if you're suffering with pain, cancer, forms of epilepsy. There was one senator that fought against the legalization of marijuana until he did his research, and he's seen lung cancer. The use of this Rick Simpson oil reduced lung cancer by 50%. And there was a patient that he followed that was having seizures, 5 or more seizures a day, epileptic seizures. But the use of this oil extracted from the plant, the seizures stopped. And now this senator is all for the legalization of marijuana. And in many states, it's legal for medicinal purposes. You go to a doctor, you're examined by this doctor, and he determines if you are in chronic pain. And if you are in chronic pain, he will approve you for a special card that comes from the state, whatever state you live in, to where you can legally purchase marijuana. I'll be right back. Now, let me make this statement. I am not a marijuana user. I don't smoke marijuana. I don't use any of the Rick Simpson oil. I do not take marijuana for a medicinal purpose whatsoever. I am not an advocate for marijuana. Now, with that said, just like any narcotic or painkiller, when you see the doctor, and he has to be a licensed physician, and he examines you and finds that you are in chronic pain, just like with any other narcotic, what the federal government deems illegal, such as Vicodin, Oxycontin, and the list is long, he will prescribe marijuana for you, and you are issued a card by your state. Now remember, this is the same as any other drug prescribed for pain. It is legal for medicinal purposes because it has been prescribed by a physician, a doctor, a medical doctor, and you are issued this card. But it is legal in your state, but the federal government, the ATF, that's another story. I'll be right back. Now here's what they're not telling you. Now the doctor will sit down with you after he's examined you, found you to be in chronic pain, and approved you for the use of medical marijuana. He'll go over the do's and don'ts with you. he will explain to you that while under the influence of medical marijuana, that you cannot drive a motor vehicle. Now, just like with any painkillers that the doctor may prescribe for you as well, but what they're not telling you is that by having this medical marijuana card from your state, you've given up your Second Amendment right to bear arms. You cannot apply for a purchase permit. Now, on the application, it's going to say, do you take illegal drugs? And that's a catch 22 there. Well, no, it's legal. It's legal in my state for medicinal purposes, so I'm not doing it illegally. But the federal government, the ATF, says differently. So you got to be very careful there, because they force you to say yes. They won't issue you a purchase permit. You cannot get a CPL, a concealed pistol license. Now here's what is happening. The same with doctor-patient confidentiality. That is done away with. If you go to the doctor, so if you're under medical marijuana, which they know the vast majority that grew up in the various eras of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, grew up in that society, but there is a great number of gun owners that use marijuana either for chronic pain or just for recreational purposes. Now they've got your guns. They've grabbed your guns. You cannot have a purchase permit. If you walk into a sheriff's office, you will see a sign posted, medical marijuana user, turn in your guns. But here's what they have done now. Now, why do you think they're pushing Obamacare and pushing that you have to have medical insurance? And if you don't have insurance, an HMO, Obamacare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Medicare, Medicaid, you're going to pay a hefty fine. Obama, look how many executive orders that he has written. He is pushing through, and he is going to write an executive order. I was given this first-hand information from a very reliable source. He knows he's not going to waste the time to go through Congress. They got to grab the guns now. They got to grab your guns now, because they plan on this economy crashing, and they can't have citizens armed. So he's going to write an executive order that if you're under the care of a physician and you're being prescribed painkillers, narcotics, you have to turn in your guns. You have to give up your Second Amendment rights. You cannot apply for a purchase permit. But even if it's legal in your state, it's still, the federal government trumps the state. It's a narcotic. It's a controlled substance. And if you are prescribed, if you have health care insurance, and you go to the doctor for every ache, pain, and sniffle, and he prescribes you medication or a painkiller, like Oxycontin or Vicodin or whatever the case may be, you have to turn in your guns. Just like with medical marijuana. You can't get a purchase permit, even though it's legal, your doctor prescribed it. The feds say it's not legal, but it is a controlled substance, so you've given up your Second Amendment rights to bear arms. Now, doctor-patient confidentiality is no more. They have done away with that. So, well, they'll never know. This is between my doctor prescribing me these pain medications. I'm not taking marijuana. I'm taking these drugs prescribed by the medical profession. There is no more doctor-patient confidentiality. In closing, let me show you. This is how they've got to do it, and they're doing it right now. They are doing this right now. Again, I have been privy to some information that Obama is going to give an executive order that if you are taking prescription drugs, if you go to the doctor, if you have health care, Obamacare, Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield, you've given up. You can't own a gun and be under the influence of prescription drugs. I'll be right back. All right, here we go in closing. Now, just in the short time that it took to do this video, I posted this article, this news article that came out today on Facebook on a group that I belong to, an open carry group. And I just post up here, any thoughts on this? I give the link, and here's the article. It is happening here, permanent gun confiscation. permanent gun confiscation ordered after veteran sought voluntarily. A Navy and 30-year police force veteran is suing after legally registered firearms were confiscated as a result of seeking voluntary treatment for insomnia. He had insomnia. He went to the doctor because he was prescribed a prescription drug. They took away his guns. They confiscated his guns. Now, you want to see how serious this is? Just in the short time, because this made headlines today. Look what happened when you go to the link. It's gone. All right. The website is gone. The domain expired on 1 January 2nd, 2015. That's today. Pending renewal or deletion. The entire site and domain are gone. Leave me comments, everyone. It's here. If you go to the doctor, if you are sick and you have health insurance, you've lost your Second Amendment rights. Leave me comments.